Turn 1. Las Vegas. The championship leader sits on pole position, every advantage in his hands. 20 seconds later, he's sliding across the runoff. The lead is gone, the rhythm is shattered, and Max Verstappen, he's already disappearing into the neon lights ahead. This wasn't luck. This wasn't chaos. This was precision disguised as opportunity. Because while the world watched Lando Norris fight the pressure of a championship, Verstappen was doing what he does best, turning a single mistake into 20 seconds of pure, unshakable dominance. But here's what nobody expected. Verstappen won the race, yet somehow Norris won the night. How does the man who finishes first still finish second in the story that matters most? Las Vegas was supposed to be Lando Norris's statement race. Pole position, fresh tires, a McLaren engineered for straight-line speed on the fastest street circuit of the season. Everything pointed toward control. Instead, it became the most defining 10 seconds of his championship campaign. Norris attempted a defensive maneuver into Turn 1, aggressive, committed, reminiscent of Michael Schumacher's territorial style. But in trying to shut the door on Verstappen, he forgot the most fundamental rule of racing. You still have to make the corner. He carried too much speed, missed the apex entirely, slid wide across the runoff area. And in those fleeting seconds, the entire complexion of the Grand Prix changed. Verstappen swept past. George Russell capitalized. Norris dropped to third, from controlling the field to chasing shadows. But that was just the start, because what happened next wasn't about one mistake. It was about how one moment can unravel an entire strategic blueprint. Verstappen now had clean air, no pressure, no variables, just open tarmac, cold tires warming into rhythm, and a driver who thrives when left alone to execute. Russell tried to stay close during the opening laps, but Verstappen built a cushion, small, deliberate, enough to breathe. Meanwhile, Norris found himself in recovery mode before lap 5 had even completed. The psychological weight of a championship fight doesn't just live in your mind, it lives in your breaking point, your line choice, your split-second decisions under lights you can't afford to get wrong. And this is where the story gets dark. McLaren had a problem, not just the lost track position, but the reality that their entire race plan depended on controlling the tempo from the front. Now they were reacting, chasing, calculating. George Russell pitted first on lap 18, switching to the hard compound as his steering issues began to compromise his pace. Mercedes went early, trying to undercut their way back into contention. McLaren responded 5 laps later, bringing Norris in on lap 23 to cover Russell's strategy and avoid losing another position in the pit cycle. But Red Bull, they waited. Lap 26, Verstappen finally boxed. 3 laps longer than Norris, 5 laps longer than Russell. And when he rejoined the circuit, the gap hadn't just been maintained, it had been optimized. Fresh tires already in their working window. Traffic avoided, tire delta preserved. It looked like patience, but it was calculation. Because Verstappen didn't just win the race in Turn 1, he won it in the pit window, where races are decided by tenths and championships are lost in hesitation. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Norris is faster than Verstappen on many Sundays this season, but speed without composure is just noise. After passing Russell on lap 34, Norris began to close the gap, briefly. For a handful of laps, it looked like the fight might ignite. But then McLaren delivered the message that ended any hope of a real battle. Significant fuel saving required to reach the finish. That single radio call revealed everything. McLaren had pushed too hard trying to recover from the Turn 1 error. They'd burned through fuel attempting to chase down a gap that never should have existed. And now, with 20 laps remaining, Norris couldn't push even if he wanted to. Verstappen's lead stabilized. Then it grew. Then it became inevitable. From that moment forward, this wasn't a race. It was a procession led by the one driver who never had to make a single desperate decision all evening. Red Bull's most composed strategic performance in months. Not because they gambled, but because they didn't have to. Verstappen crossed the line 20 seconds ahead of Norris. Dominant, controlled, unshaken. But here's where the story twists into something far more complex. Lando Norris extended his championship lead over Oscar Piastri. Despite the Turn 1 error, despite finishing second, despite everything going wrong in the opening seconds, Norris still walked away from Las Vegas in a stronger position than when he arrived. Because Piastri, trapped in midfield traffic after his own Turn 1 contact, never recovered. He finished outside the podium positions, losing critical ground in a championship fight that's slipping further from his grasp with every round. Piastri now sits 30 points behind Norris, only 12 points ahead of Verstappen. The McLaren dream of two equal drivers challenging for glory? It died somewhere between Austin and Las Vegas. And now the paddock's biggest fear is becoming reality. One team, two drivers, one throne. Verstappen, meanwhile, keeps his mathematical hopes alive with 366 points, 42 behind Norris with 58 left to score. It's not a comeback, not yet, but it's survival. And in Formula One, survival means you're still dangerous. This wasn't just a race, it was a warning. Scenario 1, Verstappen carries this momentum into Qatar and Abu Dhabi, and Norris cracks under the weight of closing out a championship he's led for months. Red Bull doesn't need luck. They need Norris to hesitate one more time. Scenario 2, Piastri fades completely, finishing fourth in a championship McLaren once believed he could win. And the internal tension at Woking becomes impossible to hide. Because when one driver is fighting for a title and the other is fighting for relevance, equality becomes a fantasy. Scenario 3, Norris steadies himself, Verstappen runs out of road, and McLaren celebrates their first drivers' championship in over a decade. But even in victory, the question lingers. Was it dominance or survival? Was Las Vegas the beginning of Verstappen's late-season surge? Or was it simply one perfect execution in a season where perfection hasn't been enough? Can Norris close out a championship after proving he can recover from mistakes? Or will one more error hand Verstappen the comeback nobody saw coming? One thing's certain. This title fight isn't over because of what happened in Las Vegas. It's alive because of what didn't happen. And the next race won't be about speed. It'll be about nerves. If you made it this far, you already know. This season's not about who's fastest. It's about who survives the pressure when the lights go out and the margins disappear. So, tell me, who's really in control of this championship fight? This is how McLaren destroyed their own championship hopes in just a few seconds. Right after the Las Vegas Grand Prix ended, the team thought they'd locked in massive points. But then the FIA inspection began, and everything collapsed. Both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri were disqualified for excessive plank wear. The wooden skid block under the car was literally shaved down by Vegas's brutal bumps and insane straight-line speeds. The track kept grinding the floor away lap after lap, quietly, until the FIA measured it. And just like that, both cars were out. Every point vanished, and McLaren's title fight took a huge hit.